Section 1 of the Spiritual Maxims of Brother Lawrence. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Spiritual Maxims of Brother Lawrence. Section 1. We must study ever to regard God and His glory in everything we do, and say, and undertake. This is the end that we should set ourselves, to offer to God a sacrifice of perfect worship in this life, as we hope to do through all eternity. We ought firmly to resolve to overcome, with the grace of God assisting us, the many difficulties that will meet us in the spiritual life. When we enter upon the spiritual life, we should consider thoroughly what we are. Probing to the very depth, we shall find that we are altogether deserving of contempt, unworthy of the name of Jesus, prone to all manner of maladies and subject to all kinds of infirmities, which distress us and impair the soul's health, rendering us wavering and unstable in our humours and dispositions. In fact, creatures whom it is God's will to chasten and make humble by numberless afflictions and adversities, as well within as without. We must believe steadfastly, never once doubting, that such discipline is for our good, that it is God's will to visit us with chastening, that it is the course of His divine providence to permit our souls to pass through all manner of sore experiences and times of trial, and, for the love of God, undergo divers sorrows and afflictions for so long as shall seem needful to Him, since without this submission of heart and spirit to the will of God, devotion and perfection cannot subsist. A soul is the more dependent on grace, the higher the perfection to which it aspires, and the grace of God is more needful for each moment, as without it the soul can do nothing. The world, the flesh, and the devil can join forces, and assault the soul so straitly and untiringly that, without humble reliance on the ever-present aid of God, they drag the soul down in spite of all resistance. Thus to rely seems hard to nature, but grace makes it become easy, and brings with it joy. End of section 1. Section 2 of the Spiritual Maxims of Brother Lawrence. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Of necessary practices for attaining to the spiritual life. That practice that is alike the most holy, the most general, and the most needful is the practice of the presence of God. It is the schooling of the soul to find its joy in His divine companionship, holding with Him at all time, and at every moment humble and loving converse, without set rule or stated method, in all time of our temptation and tribulation, in all time of our dryness of soul, and disrelish of God, yes, even when we fall into unfaithfulness and actual sin. We should apply ourselves unceasingly to this one end, to so rule all our actions that they be little acts of communion with God. But they must not be studied, they must come naturally from the purity and simplicity of the heart. We must do all things thoroughly and soberly, without impetuosity or precipitancy, which denotes a mind undisciplined. We must go about our labours quietly, calmly, and lovingly entreating Him to prosper the works of our hands. By thus keeping heart and mind fixed on God, we shall bruise the head of the evil one and beat down his weapons to the ground. When we are busied or meditating on spiritual things, even in our time of set devotion, whilst our voice is rising in prayer, we ought to cease for one brief moment, as often as we can, to worship God in the depth of our being, to taste Him though it be in passing, to touch Him, as it were, by
Sample complete. Ready to continue?